Hello, welcome back. My name is Ari, and as you could probably already tell by the title of this video, this is a vlog for the HiBearNation readathon hosted by Savage Reads. I will link his channel down below. I love watching his videos even though he and I don't read even vaguely the same type of books. It just gives me a new experience in life, and I'm okay with that. So for this first clip, I'm just gonna kind of give you my TBR since I didn't make a separate video for it. I've got so many TBRs and wrap-ups to do at the beginning of this month that it didn't make sense just to make a separate video for it. So you get everything all in one. There are 8 prompts. 4 of them are like the main basic prompts, and then the other 4 are like extras in case you're feeling frisky, I guess, and think you can read more than 4 books in a month or in a week. I don't know if I said it already, but if not, this runs from August 1st through August 8th, so you get 7 days. It's a week-long readathon. The first prompt is to read a book with a red cover, and for that prompt I chose How to Be Less Stupid About Race by Fleming. This is one of the many nonfiction books I've been reading recently and plan to continue reading in the future, just to educate myself more about experiences other than mine, specifically racism since the Black Lives Matter movement in June. I will be straight up honest with you and tell you that I bought this book simply because of the title. It was just a title that stood out to me. I haven't really heard anybody talk about this specific one, but it does have a red cover. The second prompt is hot or cold, where you want to read a book that makes you feel either hot or cold, because while it's summer here in the southern half of the hemisphere, it's winter. So there you go. For this one, I'm actually going to read a book that covers both. And I'm so punny. For this, I'm going to read Ice Planet Barbarians, which, if you can't tell by the cover right here, it's cold because it's about an ice planet, but it also makes me hot because this is a smutty, smutty romance. So it just fit the prompt so perfectly, and I've been wanting to read this for a while because I've heard just so many hilarious things about it that I have to read it. It's basically, from my understanding, it's about a bunch of Earth women who are kidnapped and like sold, or like kidnapped by aliens to be sold into sexual slavery on other planets. So it's like human trafficking. But they crash land, I believe, on this ice planet, and each different book in the series is about a different woman and the love that she finds with one of the barbarians on this ice planet, and how they kind of like escape sexual slavery and human trafficking, but they're unable to return to Earth, and they're kind of like making the best out of their situation as they can. It's a lot lighter, I believe, than that synopsis covered. And from my understanding, it's not really super problematic in the way of consent and stuff like that a lot of the books along the similar vein are. It's just supposed to be like all in good fun. So I'm looking forward to reading this. For the next prompt is a book set in a place you've always wanted to go on holiday. And for this, I am reading Darkfever by Karen Marie Moning. And I chose this book. It's a reread. I've already read it before, but it's set in Ireland, and Ireland is like just the place that I've always wanted to travel and visit and just spend like a month or something just in the countryside of Ireland. with all the rain and the leprechauns and the fantastic accents. So even though this is a reread, and even though I probably could have found another book set in Ireland, I know this is really fast-paced, so that's the one I picked for this. The next book, or the next prompt, is a book with sun or a sun in either the title or on the cover. And for that, I am reading Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. As you can see right here, there is a sunset happening in, or on the cover. This, I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of sun because it's vampires. I've seen the movie and I've always kind of wanted to read the book, and so now I'm gonna get the chance to read Interview with a Vampire and probably ruin the movie for me for the rest of my life. Those are the 4 main prompts, but you know me, I've got backups, so we can do the extra ones. The first extra prompt is a book you wanted to read in the first half of the year but never got to. For that, I am going to read Aurora Burning. This one is like barely making the cutoff for the first half of the year. I read Aurora Rising in the spring, loved it, instantly wanted to pick this up like right afterwards, but didn't have the time. So now that I do have the time, I'm going to read this one. So very, very much looking forward to this book. The next extra prompt is a book featuring an animal that makes you think of summer. And that one was like it made me think for a while. It's like, what specific animal makes me think of summer? Like, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of animals that I just instantly associate with summer. And then I thought, okay, like I associate going to the beach with the summer, and then I associate going to the beach with sharks, so Jaws. Probably not like the most ideal thing to read before going to the beach or on the beach or whatever, but I definitely associate sharks with summer. So I'm gonna read Jaws. The last 2 prompts are non-book related. So there's only 6 books. Those are the 6 books. I'll cover the last 2 prompts right now. The third prompt, I guess, in the extras is to read for 24 or 48 hours in a week, which I can definitely do. I think I do that automatically anyway. So no problem. And then the 4th extra prompt is to share a pic on social media of you reading in your favorite summer spot. There we go. And cut to the clips. Okay, so still day 1, but I have done the introduction, or I've read the introduction in the first chapter of How to Be Less Stupid About Race, and how I plan to read this book. It's because it's got 7 chapters. I'm going to read 1 chapter a day, every day, because my mind has a tendency to like stop paying attention. Wonder, that's the word I'm looking for. My mind has a tendency to wonder when I am reading non-fiction books. It's got to be something from like my school days where I'll be reading and then I'll start thinking about something else and I'll continue reading and then I'll pause and I'll be like, what the F did I just read? And I kind of have to go back and read it. I don't know why. I do it with almost all nonfiction, and I definitely started doing that with this book. This is a very interesting combination of like really funny stuff where it's like, dude, you dumb, and like quips and stuff like that that are made to be more interesting, like based off of how the title goes. And then there's also just like long blocks and paragraphs of like essay format. What is the word I'm looking for? It's just long paragraphs of stuff that sounds like it comes straight from a textbook, where it's informative, but not particularly like interesting. Or it's interesting, it's just not like storytelling base. It's written like a scientific article about racism, and or like a textbook, something you'd study in school. And while I can like read it, understand it, just because my mind wanders, it's very hard to like just cover to cover read this. So because there's 7 chapters, I'm going to read 1 chapter every single day and then switch it up with more like general fiction and entertaining shit, because this isn't entertaining, it's educational. And it's fine to read both. I do it all the time. So from here, I am going to start reading Interview with the Vampire. I don't know why I picked this one first. Probably because it was literally sitting right here and it was very easy to pick up. I have like no particular order on the 6 books that I have on this TBR. I'm just kind of reading them as they sound interesting. So this is what we're reading right now, and I'll check in with you in a little bit.
Hello, good morning. It is Sunday? Yeah, Sunday the 2nd. And last night I struggled with picking a book to read. So I started with How to Be Less Stupid About Race. And then I decided to start reading Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. And going into this book, like I've watched the movie. It's one of like my favorite movies when I was growing up. And I knew just by my experience with other Anne Rice books versus movies, like I purposely did not read this because I knew it was going to put the movie to shame. And I'm not even that far into it. And like the movie is just utter trash already. And I was so like sad that the book is so much better than the movie. And I was just like, I can't read this anymore. I'm done. So from there, I grabbed my Kindle and started reading Darkfever by Karen Marie Moning, which is the first book in the Fae Fever series. And this is a reread for me. This is one of the series that I really enjoyed reading when I was much younger, and rereading it now with a more critical eye, I can tell that it is very problematic and why a lot of people who read it today don't like it. There's a lot of struggle with like a misogynist male character. He physically abuses the female character, and he writes it off as like, I'm giving you a hint of what you're getting into, and he's trying to scare her away so she won't be harmed, but he doesn't need to leave like bruises all over her body to scare her away. And then it doesn't work anyway. Obviously it's a book and she's the main character, so of course she's gonna stay, but it's very abusive. And I know that both her and the guy character do a lot of growth in the process of this, I guess, or in the process of this series. They both grow a whole lot, and like you see his flaws as you go into the series, and then, you know, it's a paranormal romance, so sex, love, that kind of things. I don't think you actually get much of the sex in the first book at all. This is just kind of like an introduction where the main female character is a Southern belle. She's from Atlanta, Georgia, or Georgia. She's a Southern belle. She's from Georgia, and her sister is killed in Dublin. So she travels to Ireland to figure out what happened to her sister, and then realizes that she's descended from a group of humans who can actually see fae, and she becomes like this badass fighter chick over the course of the series. It's like from Barbie to like badass fighter chick, and it's trash. I mean, I'm like 40% of the way in the book, and I read like maybe 2 hours. So it's very fast-paced trash, and I knew that going into it. But yeah, a lot more problematic than I remembered it being, but that's okay. It's better to read problematic things and like discuss them and realize they're problematic than to read them and then don't see the flaws in the writing. So I know today I do work on Sundays, so I am working most of the day, but once I'm done with work, I'll probably go back in and read more of this, or read my next chapter of this, and then go back into Interview with a Vampire and read this until I get depressed again, and then switch to Darkfever again. And I'm just going to kind of like switch between these 3 books for now until I finish one of them. And now that there's a helicopter in the background, it's a great time to end this clip.
Hello, it is Monday morning, August 3rd, and last night I finished Dream Fever, so that's done. It's very problematic as far as like abusive relationships go, not like dating relationships, just like casual friendship or working relationships. Mac is the main character. She's female, and she is constantly physically and mentally abused by a guy named Baron, who is just, he's not really her employer, but she has discovered the Fae world for the first time in her life, and he's kind of like her guide and protector into the Fae world, but he tends to like bruise her a lot. And there's like hints that he like really cares for her and that he's in love with her, but he still beats the fuck out of her. And he does, there's also like a lot of mental abuse where he just makes her feel lesser, or like one of the examples is she likes to dress like a rainbow. She's very happy, colorful, perky, Barbie blonde, and he wants her to dress a lot more womanly is what he calls it, but he really just means like a slut. And then he takes her into situations where it's very misogynistic situations, and a lot of the places she goes with him, it's like restaurants where women won't even be served by the waiters, or a place where he refers to her as his latest piece of ass. And it's really weird because like the Fae part about it is fun, and her character herself is fun, but does it really need to be so like misogynistic? Because I know it gets a lot better about this shit later in the series. And I can tell you why, but that would be spoilers. So, yeah. I just don't remember I didn't remember this book being so misogynistic when I read it in the early 2000s, but I guess back then maybe I was more okay or just accepting of misogyny. But yeah, so that's done. It was kind of really bad. So I'm kind of sad I reread it. But yeah, the story itself is fine. It's great, amusing. I like the story. It's just the content, the background, that I'm just like, this is garbage. Anyway,
I have about 5 chapters left of How to Be Less Stupid About Race, so only 2 chapters in, I guess 3 if you count the introduction as a chapter. I will read another chapter today. Today's chapter is on racial stupidity in the Obama era, so that sounds fun. I am also almost right at 50% of the way into Interview with the Vampire. I'm like 10 pages short of 50% if we're gonna do it math. It's still very good. It's way better than the movie, and that makes me depressed. I hit part 2 in the story last night, and that's when I stopped reading and switched over to finish off Darkfever. So today I am going to read my chapter of How to Be Less Stupid About Race. I'm hopefully going to finish the rest of Interview with a Vampire, but I'm gonna read until like I'm not interested anymore, or at least too sad to continue on. And then I am going to switch over to Ice Planet Barbarians is the new book that I'm picking up after Interview with the Vampire. And that one's very, very short. It's a romance. And hopefully it's less problematic than Darkfever was. It's supposed to be. I've heard like a lot of really good things about it. We'll see. I will check back in with you later. Hello. It is Monday night. I don't work Mondays and Tuesdays, so I spent the whole day reading, and I finished Interview with a Vampire, which I have so many questions about what the fuck they were thinking with that movie, because they changed so many things pointlessly. I knew Anne Rice was not happy at the casting choices for, like, Tom Cruise as Lestat, which makes sense. Brad Pitt is not anything at all like Lewis, and Ahmed is supposed to be like 12 years old, and Antonio Banderas was definitely not 12 years old. The only person that I think was actually cast right was oh god, what is her name? The little girl. Claudia was her name, and Kristen Dunst was the actress. She was close to cast right. Claudia is supposed to be 5 years old, and obviously you're not going to get a 5-year-old actress to play that character, but she did a fairly decent job of portraying Claudia as a character, but no one else did. And this is exactly why I put off reading this book for so long, because I just knew that it was going to be so much better than the movie, and I liked the movie. Or I liked the movie so much. I guess I still like the movie. It's just going to have to be one of those things where I treat it as like a completely different entity, where it's like the same characters' names, the same really vaguely similar plotline, but just interpreted two completely different ways. It's the only way I can still like a lot of movies these days. I also read Ice Planet Barbarians. I have no idea what BookTube saw in that. It's just smut. It was literally nothing at all but smut. The plot was fairly weak. There was like one, like, first chapter of the book, there was just like straight up like rape. Like a girl got raped for punishment for screaming after she was kidnapped by aliens. And then there was some very questionable consensual, like questionably consented to oral sex in, like, once they crash landed on the ice planet. It was like a bad porn plot line. Like, I really don't understand why BookTube is so obsessed with this series, because it's frankly just, I don't want to say it's bad. It's just smut. Like, it's typical. There's not anything special about it. It's just regular crotch-warming smut. I have nothing else to say, but that is read. So that's 3 books down so far, which means the next book that I'm going to start is Jaws. And oh, where's my other book? Dark. And once I finish Jaws, or probably while I'm reading Jaws, I'll read Aurora Burning too. Now this one's probably like the thickest one, but if it's anything like Aurora Rising, which was the first book in this series, it's going to be a really quick read anyway, so I'm not super concerned about it. But for right now, the plan is record like 8 videos. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I will probably check back in tomorrow. Hello. It is what day of the week is it? It's Tuesday, and I just got finished recording some stuff for work. But I have not gotten any reading done today. It's like almost 4 in the afternoon, and I've gotten nothing done today. So I am going to go read my chapter for How to Be Less Stupid About Race, which it's the chapter that I don't want to read because today's the one about Trump. And I always feel dumber anytime I read anything about our current president. And after that, I am going to jump into Jaws. I've got 4 days left of this readathon and 3 books to get done. So we've got Jaws, Aurora Burning, and to finish out How to Be Less Stupid About Race. So I think that's doable in 4 days, but we're gonna find out. And I had food on my mouth the entire time I was recording that, so things. So I don't even know what to make of this situation right now. You ever reading a book and it's fine, and just something happens where you're just like, what the actual fuck? So I'm 51% of the way into Jaws, and admittedly the like racism and like homophobia is very problematic in this book for no apparent reason, because it's supposed to be about a killer shark, right? So that's already putting me off, but it's like in small little portions that I can mostly ignore because it's supposed to be a book about a killer shark. But there's like a subplot in this book where the police chief's wife is unhappy in her marriage, and she is flirting with the idea of having an affair, which has absolutely fuck all to do with the shark. But I am like reading through this, and the scene is this guy who is he's not a marine biologist, but he's specifically a marine biologist that studies sharks, which has its own name that I forgot. But he is 10 years younger than her, and she wants to have an affair with him, right? So they go out to lunch, and they're getting drunk and chit-chatting. And this scene comes up, which I have to read to you word for word, because it's one of those things where I'm just like, what the actual fuck is wrong with this author? It's basically a conversation where they're talking about fantasies. He says something about his great-grandfather was the landlord for the whole red light district of Denver. And she says something stupid, but not the shocking part, where she's like, that's supposed to be everybody's schoolgirl, or that's supposed to be every schoolgirl's fantasy. And he goes, what is? And she goes, to be a prostitute, to sleep with a whole lot of different men. So she's obviously like flirting with him, even if it is like the creepiest flirting ever. And he goes, was it yours? And she's like, I don't remember if it was exactly, but I guess we all have fantasies of one kind or another. But it gets worse. Then he goes, or then they get their food, and some wine, and he makes a toast and he says, to fantasies, tell me about yours. And she goes, oh, mine aren't very interesting. I imagine they're just your old run-of-the-mill fantasies. And I know you're saying, Aerie, what's a run-of-the-mill fantasy? Because I don't think this is it. He goes, there's no such thing. Tell me. And she goes, oh, just the standard thing. Rape, I guess. What? Wait, what? What? I can't. Like, what the actual fuck? This is supposed to be a book about a killer fucking shark. I can't. I'm like this close to DNFing this book just from that one conversation. I haven't read past it at this point, but I was really laying in bed and just read that and went, what? And that is followed by, how does it happen? So now apparently in the middle of Jaws, I have to read about this old woman's rape fantasies. What the fuck is wrong with this author? Okay, I'm done. I'm like crying. I'm laughing so hard at the sheer absurdity of this book right now. But yeah, I'm gonna finish reading this chapter and about this woman's rape fantasies. And I'll check back in later. Okay, it's like 30 seconds later from the end of that clip, and it gets worse. You know how I was mentioning the race problems? Well, she's describing her rape fantasy to this guy, and he asks if the man raping her in her rape fantasy is black, and we know this is not going to go well. And her reply is, no, I've heard that some women have fantasies about being raped by black men, but I never have. What the fuck is wrong with this book? I'm done. So at this point, we're going into scan mode. I am going to skip all of the parts that don't have to do with a fucking shark. And just call this book a complete loss at this point. This is the most fucked up shit I have ever read. And it's fucking Jaws. Okay. I'm done with Jaws. So I think if you took out the racism, like just blatant racism out of that book, and the all women fantasize about being raped trope that they just came out of left field, that probably would have been a really decent book about a killer shark. But I can't get past that. Like, I think that is something that I could read about if I knew it was coming or expected it. But why in the absolute fuck would anybody put, like, a rape fantasy in the middle of a book about a killer fucking shark? So, and I mean, that was bad enough, but the racism just, like, compounded it and made it so much worse. Because when you read a book, you can tell that the difference between, like, a character being problematic and the author being problematic. And this is clearly a case of the author being a racist and an incel, because it's a book about a killer great white shark. There is no circumstances in the entire universe that calls for this book to be racist. I really hope that's not in the movie. I haven't seen the movie yet. I am still planning to watch it because from what I've seen of, like, clips and scenes of the movie, that the movie is going to be very, very different from the book. Anyway, I am down to my last book, which is nowhere near me. Actually, no, it's right here. My last book for the HiBearNation readathon is Aurora Burning. I'm still obviously working on how to be less stupid about race. But yeah, it's like 10:30, so I could definitely start this. And it's like chunky, but I got through Aurora Rising so fast that I really think that I can get through this one pretty quickly. So I'm going to plow through this. I should have it finished tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow, depending on how late I have to work tomorrow night. I did end up like working half of the day today, even though I technically was supposed to have a day off, and I still managed to read all of the shit show that is Jaws, and that was like 380 pages. So I think I can get through this one pretty fast, even though it's like 500 something, 495 pages in this one. But the text is pretty big. It's young adult. Shouldn't be that bad. So definitely going to start this one. This is going to be a palate cleanser because I know what to expect out of this. And I don't think Kristoff and Amie Kaufman are going to throw me into any like random rape fantasies for absolutely no fucking reason at all. So I'm going to like bleach my brain with this book before I go back to reading shit from the 70s, because holy problematic what the fuck is all I've got right now. I am not liking the 1970s so far. Hello, it is Friday, and I don't think I updated you yesterday, but I did finish Aurora Burning. This one wasn't as good as the first one to me, so I don't know if it's suffering from middle book syndrome or if it's just like this particular, or if it's just something about like the characters in this book. What I think happened, I'm actually gonna put that book down. We're gonna switch angles. I hurt my back really bad, and so holding the camera up like that hurts a lot, which is why I didn't record yesterday. But I think that something happened with character development in the second book. The characters in the first book all like, they weren't friends. Most of them didn't like each other. They were like very snarky towards each other. And in the second book, it's like they became like a found family, and then all of their personalities got like really flat, very similar, and they just lost that fun snarkiness. And so I didn't like them as much because it was all lovey-dovey. I guess is the best way to explain it. That sounds horrible, but that's basically what it was. So I didn't like that. The story itself was fine. It was never a very like elaborate, amazing story to begin with. It was more of like a fun type of book than like a book to get you thinking. And I still very much will want to read the third book in the series once that comes out, whenever it comes out. But I gave that one a 3 stars. And then today I finished How to Be Less Stupid About Race by Kristoff Fleming. This one, I don't know. I have things that I really like about this and things that I really don't like about this. First off, based on the title, I expected this to be a lot more about like how you as an individual can be less stupid about race. And I guess it is about like educating yourself about race is totally what this is about. But how do I say this? It's like the things that most of this book covers are like big topics that a single individual will never be able to fix. And you do learn about how racist everything is. Even like there's an entire chapter about like how Obama is racist, and another chapter about like how we can easily blame Trump for his racism, but it's not like he was even close to the most racist president ever. Like every single president has been racist. So it's just more like big ticket items, I guess, through most of it. Each chapter is so like distinctly different from each other that it's probably best to like read them separately. This also reads like a textbook, which bores the hell out of me. So I had to read each chapter separately, and my mind kept wandering when I read it. So that didn't make it my favorite, even though like the topics are important. It's not written in a way that draws in my attention. It's written like a textbook. There was a quote at the end of this, which I really, really liked, that says, that I'm just going to read to you. No one is going to be able to explain to you in a soundbite what you should do to challenge racism. They simply can't. The answer is going to vary from each individual, depending on your personality and background, interests, talents, and inclinations. So it's your job to figure out how you can best leverage your knowledge and skills to help humanity. And if you don't know the answer to this question quite yet, that's absolutely fine, and in fact, even a good thing, because answering this question requires self-interrogation and thoughtfulness. So take your time, but commit to answering it. No one can solve this riddle for you. And that's basically saying, like, I know a lot of times and I've seen it, I know I've seen it a lot on Twitter where people are getting mad at other people for not doing enough or doing the right thing, in their opinion, to battle racism. And not everybody's going to be able to do the exact same thing. So this quote is basically telling you, like, you have to figure out how you are going to fight racism in your own way, and don't let other people tell you what that way is. Like, first off, don't let other people tell you what that way is, and then secondly, you can't ask another person to tell you how to do it. You have to figure it out for yourself. The only important thing about it is you have to commit to fighting racial injustices, among probably a lot of other injustices, with gender and sexual preference, but in other things, but you just have to commit to doing something. Like, the only real way to fail at fighting injustices is to do nothing about it. And the first step is to educate yourself, which is what I'm trying to do with reading all of these books. This book, and while like things like that were really good in this book, and I really, really appreciated things like that, there's also things in this book that I didn't really appreciate, where there was a chapter on like interracial dating, and she basically implied that black women should date outside of race, but black men should not be allowed to date outside of their race because of beauty standards pointing out that, or like global beauty standards basically saying that white women are more attractive than anybody else, means that black men look at white women by racist white beauty standards, and so they shouldn't be able to date white women. And I'm like, I get like how that can be problematic, but I also don't think that anybody should be able to tell another person who they can or can't date, as long as both people in a relationship have the ability and the willingness to consent to the relationship. It's no one else's business. So that one's a little iffy for me, is basically the nicest way I could say that. Is I'm not really feeling that. And that's kind of how the whole book is like there's parts where I'm like, holy shit, like I never thought about this, I'm learning a lot. There's other parts where I'm like, oh, holy shit, I don't agree with that. And then there's some parts where I'm like, I'm so bored by what's going on right now, and you're not telling me anything. So this one's kind of a 3 stars. It's like right down the middle, not the best, not the worst.
I'm looking forward to continuing to read more and continuing to like learn new things and educate myself. I did actually just get another book in the mail about racism, and so that will be next month's nonfiction read. Okay, I am done a whole day early with all 6 books for the HiBearNation readathon. Yay! I'm gonna go through everything again, tell you what I read, just like a quick wrap up. So for the first prompt was a book with a red cover, which was How to Be Less Stupid About Race, which was literally the clip right before this. So 3 stars on that one. Number 2 was a book that makes you hot or cold, and I read Ice Planet Barbarians, which was a book that made me both hot and cold because it was a smut book set on an ice planet. That was also 3 stars. It was standard smut. Nothing special about that. Number 3 was a book set in a place you've always wanted to go on holiday, and for that I read Darkfever by Karen Marie Moning, and that was set in Ireland, which a place I've always wanted to visit. Number 4 was a book with sun or summer on the cover or in the title, and for that I read Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. You can see there's a sunset right there. Easy. I enjoyed this. I also gave this 3 stars. It's better than the movie, but because it's from Lewis's perspective, and Lewis is such a pompous, self-righteous asshole, it's very wordy. So unless you like to read like pompous writing, then you probably won't like that. And that's not Anne Rice, that's specifically because it's written from the perspective of that character, and that's what his personality is. Next up was a book you wanted to, a book you wanted to read the first half of the year, which you didn't get to, and for that I read Aurora Rising by J. Kristoff and Amie Kaufman. I wanted to read this as soon as I finished Aurora Burning, but I didn't have the time, so I got to it now. It wasn't as good as the first book. I liked Aurora Rising better. Still a 3 star. And the final prompt was an animal that makes you think of summer. And for that I read Jaws, which was the worst book ever. So this readathon was not very successful. It was like 3 stars across the board and then a 1 star for Jaws because of the weird, creepy rape fantasies that they're going to put. Like, there is absolutely no reason to have racism in Jaws. It's a book about a fucking killer shark. Why do you need to bring race into this? This is like so unnecessarily racist and sexist. It's just, it's horrifying. Like, I hate everything about that book. Stick to the movie on that one. But yeah, that was 5 3 stars and a 1 star. So not the most successful reading week. While that was going on, even though it wasn't a prompt, I also read The Shadows by Alex North this week. I have a physical copy of it, but I read most of it as an audiobook while I was working. This is okay. It was another 3 star. It's a thriller. I don't have a whole lot to say about this because it's not part of the readathon, but I did read it this week. Right now I am reading Flowers in the Attic by V.C. Andrews as a physical book, and Girl Serpent Thorn
I don't remember who it's by, but that's my current audiobook. I am way early in Flowers in the Attic, like only like 2 or 3 chapters in, so I'm not really sure what to think about it yet, but I'm very, 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 very much enjoying Girl Serpent Thorn. So you will hear about both of those at the end of the month in the monthly wrap up, or check out my Goodreads if you can't wait to see a review of those. I review every single book that I read on Goodreads, which is linked down in the description below. Even though I didn't read any special or great books, I still very, very much enjoyed this readathon. And thank you to Savage Reads for putting it on. I said at the beginning of the video, but I will definitely link his channel down in the description, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!